Hello, it's time for a new game. I've started to publish links to the videos on my YouTube channel, and also links to the study here on leashes. I made commercial from my regular account on both Chess.com and leashes, so hopefully some people finds this game and likes to watch it and are as interested in Magnus Carlsen's game as me. I just saw Magnus play in Speed Chess Championship final against Hans Niemann. Won't spoil the result, but it was fun to see them again. Looks like they made up their argument. I will of course come to that game, but it was a game maybe 3 years ago when Magnus played a very bad opening in the Nimzo Indian, and he lost as white to Hans Niemann, and after that it was a big argument. But it seems like they're friends now because they played in the same studio and everything was fine and so on. So okay, so we are now in the new tournament. We are in the, so here is how I find the games. I search Magnus on chessgames.com. So I'm looking at this, the MTEL Masters tournament, and I found a lot of interesting games here. I will also do some games that Magnus didn't win. We're going to start with this Topalov and then doing a few others. And the reason for that is that I like, of course, there is openings in chess that are just more interesting than others, and we will see Magnus playing the Dragon Sicilians, even if this become, it will be interesting to see that one. And when he's playing Shirov, he's playing let me show this opening. He's playing as white. He's playing this. It's very unusual for top players here, I think, to play Bishop G5. Bishop G5 was the most like popular classical move, but it didn't become. It's nowadays I think E3 is much more popular, and go over to the Meran system, because there is two lines here in the semi-Slav. This is called the semi-Slav here, and there is two lines for black here that's very complicated. One is that we will see against Shirov, when Shirov played this line, which is called the Butvinik variation, and this is a line that Shirov, he analyzed and played a lot of games in this line. And I also have his book Fire on Board, where he analyzed and discussed this opening. It's a very interesting opening that I also played a lot. And the other way here, I think we had some other game with Magnus, and now this is called the Moscow variation, and there are two lines here for black. Magnus plays the safe solid move here, but I think he also played it maybe in some games before here, where he played this gambit. So this is known as a gambit. It's a bit similar to this line, but it's a better version for black. It's the same here, like if in this position you would go back G5 and go here. But this also gives quite interesting play. Bishop E2, castling, maybe H4 sometimes. White has interesting play for the pawn. And but Magnus chose the safer move here, and he takes here. And I've played this line also as white, and usually it's very hard to get anything, and especially against a player like Topalov, who is quite a good defender. He's an attacking player, but still is quite a fine defender here. So Topalov for sure hoped Magnus would go for this line, because this would be a position to Topalov's taste, and probably not to Magnus' taste. Magnus is more of a positional player. So let's see how Magnus, because I play this a lot, like, and I never get anything here as white. So this is the most normal way, and black used to take him, and they used to do this g6, bishop g7, castling, and then e5, and it's just hard to get anything. So here Magnus make interesting move here, e4, and like it would be possible, yeah, it's interesting that he wants to play e5 here. So let's put on the computer here. If black would have prevented this with e5, maybe this would have been better for black, to not allow the structure that was in the game, even if I think the structure in the game must be fine also for black. This is one way how they sometimes play this position. And something like this, just in my opinion, isn't very much for white. Apparently white should do this one now, because I guess to not allow this kind of a pin. But let's see how the game continued here. It was castling, e5. This is kind of normal for white to play in this kind of queen's gambit, except it's normal for white to put the queen here, put the rook here maybe, but often then the pawn is on e2. So e3, I mean, so it's a bit unusual to push this pawn here, and of course it blocks the bishop, but it also this structure is so solid for blacks, it's just hard to believe white will get an attack here. So let's see what happened. So this move looks quite good. Sometimes it's good for white to trade the bishops here, actually, because this just doesn't have very many prospects here. Not neither does black bishop, but maybe some pawns can be weak here, and so looks to me that he can take here, or am I blind? Yeah, I'm blind. It looks like this could win a pawn for white, but he can take here in between, and I am sure they saw this tactic, both of them, because it's quite an obvious. So now white has achieved some kind of a dream setup here, and it's just hard because all white's pieces are like at the optimal squares. So it's just hard to how can you improve the pieces? They're already perfectly placed, like so. This is kind of the problem for white here when black chooses such a solid setup. So he does something that, like the computer likes to do, it likes to push h pawn and a pawn when you don't know what to do. I have some old book of Bent Larsen, the Danish chess player, and he said, like, if you don't know what to do, just play h4, h5. And I think he's been dead a long time before, like, the chess computers were invented. But the modern chess computers, they like it also sometimes to push the pawns, h pawns. Okay, so the computer didn't like this one. a4, it looks like white should do anything, but obviously computer doesn't like it. It liked this better, but I still don't see any plan for white. So to me it's understandable to do a4, but apparently it gave up all the advantage. And now black should apparently have pushed here and then c5. Yeah, it looks right to push, and then when the knight has to go back, then go for c5, because I imagine the knight can go to e4. So that's, yeah, according to the computer, this c5 is quite a clear mistake here. Let's see what happened. So he he did take. Yeah, the computer likes this a bit better. That's interesting. Okay, and then d5. That looks quite... that looks quite... Something like this looks quite promising for white, in my opinion. This one is quite strong, and there is some tactical chances here. So an alternative would be this one, c takes d4, and white can do as a tactic, which this is a good tactic to know, because white can do the same tactic in the Maran variation that I talked about before. There is also this tactic that when black takes here, sometimes he takes here. It's like yeah, if you have seen the position, you know which one I'm talking about. So apparently something like this was interesting. And then saving the bishop. Yeah, this... The computer is not so impressed because black has this shot apparently. By the way, speaking about computer, this is Stockfish 16, and this analysis that I pressed here, it's Stockfish 16.1. I saw there was a news that Stockfish 17 is published, and hopefully Leashes implements Stockfish 17 to their server. Then we can like, this computer is already way better than Magnus and Topalov and me, of course, but still, the better computer, the better. Okay, so after this one, black took on c4, and on d4 I mean. If he took back, then takes... Yeah, and white is a pawn up for not very much. Yeah. So I guess Topalov's idea was this one. It looks like Magnus played the best move. So here, this bishop takes e4 is an inaccuracy. Best was this. Takes. That's kind of nice setup to hold down black's pieces. But the computer is not so impressed. He thinks that this is just completely equal, apparently. So let's see what happened. Black took, knight took. So here again, the computer likes to start with f4. Sometimes, yeah, like they say, like if you see a check or a threat, like it's sometimes better to save the threat, like it's some kind of threat to go in here, of course, but often it's better just to save it. So let's see what happened. Okay, so this is a mistake. Rook a8 was best. Yeah, obviously Magnus' plan would have been to take this one, but the computer thinks that trading the knights here is good. That's a hard move for a human to see, but why is that so good? I don't really see it. Of course, it's beneficial for white black to trade these knights. So let's look at the line here, try to understand it. This is hard to understand, but apparently computer thinks this is fine for black, even if white has an extra pawn. I guess it's because there is some chances for some counterplay, but for a human this looks like very good for white. So it's understandable Topalov didn't want to sacrifice this pawn. He probably didn't understand that the endgame is nothing to worry about. Okay, and now he does f4. It's a good setup to keep black down, and now already white is winning here. And this is typical for Magnus. Looks like he didn't do anything. Topalov played the most solid opening in the world, like the Moscow variation. He didn't do anything wrong, and suddenly Magnus didn't do anything right either, and suddenly Magnus is just winning. He just has this positional talent that's just no one in the world has that positional talent to put the piece on the right squares like Magnus. So it's a genius at work. So obviously here, if black says like f5 is the only like best move, then black is just in trouble and can't move here. So let's see what happened. Let's give a check. Now we see that the h pawn is useful. He prepared it to push it here at the right moment, and now it's the right moment. Then because this knight it's on queen here, then they could threaten on g6. So okay, so looks like this. After this, white is winning. Best would be this one to threaten the knight apparently, and then looks like Magnus can take here. That's not so easy to see. It's easy to see like with a computer, but without a computer that's just that's amazing actually. He doesn't even give a check. He goes here and wants this one. Like obviously it's a pin here. So it's logical to move the king here, and then apparently this. Okay, and he can't move the knight or defend here. What about defending with the king maybe? Like if rook c6 takes, then that's like I can understand that is winning for white. It's just the knight is much better than the bishop, and it's a pawn up. But what happens if he likes try to defend here? Okay, so he's threatening this one. I see. I see. So even if this one, he's just threatening this one and win the knight for nothing. So that's interesting. So computer liked this one, queen f8, a bit better. Let's see what happens there. So takes. Okay, the computer says rook c7. Rook c7 takes queen here, and he can't defend this one. But I want to see what's happening with this sacrifice. Okay, let's take here. Okay, so either this one or he has some kind of a discovered check here. So if he moves the knight, then apparently this is mating. And if he goes here to block the check. Okay, that's beautiful. I don't think Magnus saw that. But maybe he did. He calculates very good. Okay, I have to take with check, I guess. Okay, and then he can win the queen like that. I thought maybe it was something like that, but it's better to win the queen, of course. Okay, and what What if it takes here then? Okay, this is also not obvious. This one is right. I guess this defends the king and he can't go up because the fork, of course. So it has to go down. And then you take here. Okay, and white is mating here. Yeah, that's interesting stuff, actually, very interesting stuff. Okay, so I did this one, it didn't help. Let's see here, takes. Okay, and rook c7 is right. For some reason this doesn't work anymore. Why does this not work now? It doesn't work because he can have this one and trade the queens. Okay, so that tactic that we saw before doesn't work now. So it's better just to go in with the rook. Okay, so he gave a check. What about moving the queen here? Okay, so then it's that's also a cool tactic. And you win the queen. That's very nice tactic. If it goes here, then you can take the queen, of course. But I really liked, like this one is in the way, so like here, this one is in the way, so he can take it, and then that's a lovely tactic. Okay, and if it takes, and I guess black will run out of checks. What about here? Yeah, and he's out of checks, and this is devastating threat. So let's see what happened. I guess something similar happened. Let's see here. Okay, only one winning move, but it's a logical move here. Like you get both here. Yeah, we get kind of the same position here where this threat is just unstoppable, and yeah, this construction where he can't check. So that's very nice, very nice. Very, very nice game by Magnus. Okay, so this is I think this is it's the MTEL Masters in Sofia in Bulgaria, and Topalov is Bulgarian, so, and Topalov is at 28. I think this is like the best period in his life. He got a world championship match against, I think he got a world championship match. I'm not so sure about that, but I think maybe he got a world championship against Kramnik or Anand, and like 2800, that's just a world championship class rating. So it's yeah, very impressive for Magnus to win this game.